Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Minds, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you find cool stuff in stock every day. Visit CoolStuffInc.com and use the promo code MagicMikes to save 5% off anything in the store, single sealed supplies, whatever you want. Get 5% off using the promo code MagicMikes, and check out our co-sponsor, Mana Traders, the best tool to enhance your Magic Online experience. Use the code MagicMikes_IQJ. That's MagicMikes_IQJ for 10% off your next subscription with Mana Traders. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate them, and it's always a fun time. And so here we have, let me scoot Mr. Bresser over just a little bit here. Here we have, as we begin, by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Power Dragon.
You know what? I think today might be the first top 10 I've done with y'all that people are going to hate.
Oh my goodness, I did not fix that. So we're going to go to number 10. And Ruben Bresser.
I'm curious to see why, but sure, let's do it. That's engagement. Everybody loves engagement.
I dig the engagement. We also begin with our choice of the top comment from our last top 10, a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who is the most eloquent, letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 Foundations cards. Ruben?
Well, we had some passionate comments in our last episode, and some of them went a little verbose for me to pick. So I went with the pithy option. The brevity is the soul of wit here, with J dash numbers and letters. Thanks, J dash number and letters. Kind of sad, nobody mentioned Niv Mizzet Visionary. The fact that Niv can go infinite with himself is such a flavor win for arguably the biggest ego in the multiverse. Plus, burn and pingers, drawing you cards, and a decent body is just fun.
Yeah, the Niv Mizzet Visionary is one of the new mythics of the set. You can go ahead and bring it up here so we can take a look at it. It is a blue-red and 4 generic mana for a 5/5 mythic legendary dragon wizard with flying. You have no maximum hand size, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. And his old version lets you basically sort of do the same thing, and then all of a sudden he combos with himself. Yay!
Right. Yeah, if you have 2 copies of his 5 versions, if you have the correct 2 copies in play, they go infinite with each other.
Fantastic.
Which is great. I guess they don't go infinite. They deal enough. Yeah. They deal as much damage as you have cards in your library.
Right. So you don't die or whatever.
Which, to be fair, that's very Izzet of them.
Yeah.
Well, it was super rad. We appreciate J-YR901 or something for being a part of the show. Stay tuned for our top 10 list this week and let us know what your choice of an honorable mention may be. So we're going to talk here about Pioneer Masters. This is the Magic Arena only release that is going to officially rename Explorer to Pioneer on the client, which I think is awesome. It's literally designed to fill holes that were missing from the format. Giant, big monsters of the format in some form or fashion. And I'm very excited to talk about them. And we're going to go ahead and get started here with our number 10. Ruben, what's your number 10?
Well, I have a couple of hires on my list, and unfortunately, number 10 is my first hire. So someone else will have to go first.
Mr. Power Dragon?
Mine is a simple one, which I was a little surprised it got included. The more I thought about it, was actually part of a couple of decks for a minute, and it was Experiment 1. So 1 green for a 1/1. It's a human ooze that has evolved, so when a creature enters under your control, it has greater power or toughness in this card. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you can remove 2 +1/+1 counters from Experiment 1 to regenerate Experiment 1, which is actually pretty sweet. This fits a few different builds, +1/+1 counter stuff mainly, but it's just a good kind of useful card that I think people forget about sometimes. That seems to work its way back into the format. Like once every couple of years, you'll see a deck pop up and people go, oh yeah, that's still in the format. So it's kind of cool to see this get reprinted, and I'd be curious to see what people do with this.
Yeah, I mean, I love a good evolved creature. We've also got Cloudfin Raptor in the set, which makes me very happy. There's a bunch of great stuff for aggressive, 1-drop, 2-drop zoo style decks available to you in Pioneer, and this one is a new one.
Yeah, this one it kind of grows exponentially, if you will. And I wish it were honestly just a little bit better. I guess in today's world, it would need to be
Oh,
like
sure.
a 2/2 or something, maybe to keep
Right.
up. I don't know, but it is a
Yeah.
really wonderful card, and it is super fun to play with the +1/+1 counter decks.
And I remember playing with that, 12 years ago,
Woo.
in Naya Blitz. If everybody
Yep,
remembers Naya Blitz,
Yeah,
with trying to take advantage of the battalion mechanic.
there you go. Now for my number 10, now what I kind of based my whole top 10 around was what are the cards that I'm happiest to see on the client? Which ones have I been looking forward to? Because I mean, I got a big old collection playing ever since stupid beta. I got a bunch of cards. I was even doing stupid stuff like burning cards on freaking alchemy stuff the other day because I'm an idiot, but whatever. Point is, I got all sorts of weird stuff, and I'm like, which ones am I really excited? Because a lot of times, what would happen is I would build this decks, like, oh, that deck's really cool, and you just wouldn't have the one card, and one of those cards, and it was usually just a one of, but it fits so beautifully as a one of, and that is Kithion, Hero of Akros. There's so many aggro decks that just ran the one Kithion, and I was just, it ate me alive. And Kithion, Hero of Akros, is 1 white mana for a 2/1 mythic legendary human soldier. At the end of combat, if Kithion, Hero of Akros, and at least 2 other creatures attack this combat, exile Kithion, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. For white and 2 generic mana, he gains indestructible until end of turn because he needed that. He flips over into Gideon Battleforged, which is a 3 loyalty planeswalker that has a +2 up to 1 target creature an opponent controls attacks Gideon during its controller's next turn if able, +1 until your next turn target creature gains indestructible, untap that creature. And for 0, until end of turn, it becomes a 4/4 human soldier creature with indestructible that's still a planeswalker, prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. So it's just this, and as we'll see, this ain't gonna be the last one we're going to talk about. Spoiler alert! But these, awesome creatures into really good planeswalkers turns out are really awesome, and I really want this card in my deck ASAP day one.
The thing about this card is that it's just so easy to trigger. I think that's the thing. When you compare it to some others, you feel like you have to at least work a little bit. This one's just like, all right, it's a 2/1. I'm attacking anyway. Whatever. We're flipping and getting a planeswalker. So, yeah, just really good value on this card. Another one that occasionally just pops up, and you're already like, all right, I got to find a way to deal with this thing. So, definitely expect people to play with this card.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what Pioneer decks are playable right now other than like red-black stuff. But Kithion is such an impressive one drop. I always draft it in the vintage cube, much less in lower powered formats. So if I am willing to pick this card alongside my Moxen and my, strip mines, then I think it's okay.
I appreciate that last little bit of the 3 mana to make it indestructible. Like you'll sack the other creatures because you're going to get your planeswalker, and it's good enough that matters, and that's kind of incredible. This card was
you can jump attack.
Yeah, well, this card was nuts when it first showed up. If anything, people just, as with all of them, honestly, again, as we'll find, underestimated. They were just like, this is good. Like, no, dude, this card is nuts, and it's fantastic, and it's going to be great. So let's move on here to number 9, and my number 9 and my number 8 are higher on somebody else's list. So there's a bit of sadness, but that's okay because they're awesome cards. Ruben, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is, so I'll give you a look into my mind as I decided what to include in my top 10. I wanted to pick mostly exciting things that have changed in their trip over to Arena. So I picked one of 2 factors, either new art or a downshift in rarity. And specifically, I wanted cards that I am going to see more often, which means commons. Now, I am aware that being printed at common rarity on Arena does not grant legality into Pauper. I am aware of that. However, the fact that I am now going to see 10 times as many of some of these cards that were most recently printed at rare as commons in this format is shocking to me. As I was scrolling through the spoiler, as I was looking through the official previews, and I was like, wait, is that a common rarity symbol on Dreadbore somehow?
Yeah.
What in the world?
That's insane.
Dreadbore is a black and a red sorcery that has always been a rare previous to this, originally from Return to Ravnica, put in a secret lair or two, and now a common in Pioneer Masters. It reads destroy target creature or planeswalker. So not only is this a downshift from rare to common, the word planeswalker does not appear on commons that often. And so now we have a clean, straight up way, even at 2 colors, to destroy any planeswalker at common rarity.
I wonder if that was something they decided because of the flip planeswalkers in this set being more prevalent. Like maybe they wanted a few more answers for them, possibly.
Hmm.
I don't really know, but that is an interesting catch, that they actually downshifted that.
Yeah, they've recently printed sort of an upgraded version of this, if I recall. Let's see. Well, I mean, Molten Collapse is kind of this plus an
Yeah,
option, which is rad. And I think ultimately it's really cool. This is Terminate plus plus, right? Terminate used to
Yeah.
be the thing. Now this is sorcery speed, but it's hitting everything. Like I love the fact that they brought it to common because at the end of the day, I think you want Planeswalker to appear on commons because you don't want people to sort of be surprised by the type. You want them to always have answers, and this is a common answer is a hell of a lot nicer than as a rare answer. And if they
yeah.
included it as a rare, I wouldn't have blinked twice. I wouldn't even I wouldn't call them
Okay.
out for it. It's always been a rare, and now they're just like, no, common. We got you. I'm like, all right, thanks, baby.
Yeah. There was a really interesting thread, I think by Ben Schwartz, who was writing about the design discussions that they had about building the limited environment for Pioneer Masters because it was such a unique product. And he mentioned that they did some very strange things, and this is one of them.
Power Dragon. What is your number 9?
My number 9 kind of goes with the rest of my list, except for maybe one card, just being stuff that I just think it's fun to play with that I haven't played with in forever, which would be pretty cool because I haven't been playing lots of Pioneers. So, Iroas God of Victory. This is one that every time I've ever busted it out, opponents have to read it and they don't know what it does. But it's 2 colorless, red, white for a 7/4 God. It's indestructible. As long as your devotion for red and white's under 7, it's not a creature. But creatures you control have menace and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. Like, it's doing double duty. That one, they can't hardly block your stuff, but even when they do, you don't lose your stuff, right? Like, this card is a giant pain in the rear every time it hits the battlefield. So yeah, this is one I've only gotten to play with a handful of times, but I've loved it every time. So it's pretty cool to see that this is going to be on Arena in Pioneer.
This card is ridiculous. Like this card is like just like this is the top of your curve of your
Yep.
red white aggro deck. This is what you like. You are you understand who's the beatdown. If you are not the beatdown, don't play this card because it's not going to help you get back into the game unless it's triggering that devotion, and maybe that helps you out. But at the same time, this card is just like turn me sideways, turn your creatures sideways. Oh
Yeah.
my god, creatures you control of menace by itself will just end games. You don't need all the rest, but no, the rest is like, nah, you're not going to hurt any of that.
Yes.
We're just gonna do this.
So let's look at the effects as sentences by themselves. Creatures you control have menace is a magic card that exists. It's called Goblin War Drums. That would cost you 3 mana retail, 2 generic and a red. If you wanted to have your attacking creatures not suffer combat damage, that's going to be Dolmen Gate. That's going to run
Yeah.
you 2 generic mana at retail. Let's also attach an indestructible 7 power creature to that some amount of the time. This is an absurd magic card. It is a unique god of that first original 10 from Theros because most of the gods have an effect when it's not turned on and when it's turned on. Like when it's a creature and when
Yeah.
it's not a creature. This one, I mean, it does have an effect in that it affects your other creatures, but it is the closest to being textless on like an empty board of any of the gods. Whereas Keranos is the exact opposite. It does nothing additional once it becomes a creature. Most of the other ones, there's some sort of interplay between being a creature and being indestructible and being not a creature.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Iroas, for that cost, for the cost of being kind of useless on an empty board, lets you win combat. Like that is, you just own combat. All of your creatures are hard to block. None of them can die, and you have an additional indestructible creature.
Yeah, I've just always viewed it as a 4 mana enchantment that just gives you two ridiculous abilities that your
Yeah.
opponent can't get rid of. And then
Like,
occasionally on your kill turn, it's like a 7 power creature that's attacking.
right. I
Right.
mean, and if if you curve up, even if your 2-drop doesn't have 2 pips of color in it, 1-drop, 2-drop, to 3-drop, maybe a Boros Reckoner on that 3-drop, this is going to be a creature immediately. I think if this thing had haste, it would be absolutely ridiculous and
Oh,
straight
yeah, I
love
up,
can't do
of
that.
course.
as with most creatures. But
And there's so
it's
many
like,
ways to give it haste. In you've got like tap, give card target creature haste on like 10 different cards in Pioneer.
absolutely. So this card is priced to move, and it's dope. Let's move on here to number 8. Again, mine is higher, but it's super awesome. Ruben, what's number 8?
This is my final hire. I've only got 2 hires, but we're blitzing through this top 8 like an
Yeah, I guess so.
Power Dragon, what's number 8?
Mine's another fun one that anytime you see it, you just know shenanigans are ahead, which is why I'm down with this card. But Progenitor Mimic. It's 4 colorless, green, blue for a shapeshifter. So it's technically a 0/0, but you can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, not just your creatures, but any creature. Except it has at the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature isn't a token, create a token that's a copy of this creature. So you get multiple copies of whatever the thing is that you copy, turn after turn after turn. Like this unlocks a bunch of different combos, especially if you have fun like ETB things or whatever. Like that's a thing. If your opponent plays the big dumb scary creature, like you now have an army of them, which is pretty cool. Like there's just a lot of fun things you can do with this card combo wise. It just unlocks all kinds of stuff. So yeah, this is one definitely a fun one to play with, and I'm not sad that this is around. Like I always hate losing to the decks that play Progenitor Mimic, but I lose in fantastic ways, and I don't mind.
This card was unbeatable in limited last time that it was in a limited format. If you untapped with this card, you won. Period. Didn't matter what you were copying. You just got free value every turn.
Yep.
And, if my 6 drops can do that, I'm happy.
Yeah, this is one of the classics. Like it was a Mythic and Dragon's Maze. They brought it down to a rare and double masters because the power level is just crazy high. Anyway, I absolutely agree that they went to Mythic here because of limited. If nothing else, you have the answer, or the game's probably over. I don't care if it's copying a ham sandwich. A free ham sandwich every turn is going to run over your opponent, like it just does. They're just like, oh god, you didn't pay anything for that over and over and over again, and then the game's over.
Oh, and
Free
Austin,
ham
you're
sandwiches
copying
in
something
this
that's
economy?
like you're copying like a 3/3 or 4/4 almost always.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it is highly, highly dope.
Or like a 2/2 that gives you a come into play ability,
Yep.
or like literally anything, for sure.
Literally. So let's move on here to number 7. This is another card, finally to talk about cards on my list. And this is a card that I am so excited to see. Again, another one of those cards, man. I'll build the whole deck, and then I'll get down and it'll be like 4x of blank. And I'll be like, really? I built this whole damn deck, and there's no Oath of Nissa on the client. Well, Oath of Nissa's here, baby.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, Oath of Nissa. How wonderfully playable this card is. It is a 1 green mana legendary enchantment all the way back from Oath of the Gatewatch. It's a rare, and it's also a rare in Pioneer Masters, which is good. When it enters, you look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature, land, or planeswalker from among them and put it into your hand. The rest go in the bottom of your library in any order. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast planeswalker spells. Generally, the last sentence is gravy. It's nice.
Right.
But the devotion to green being 1, the 2, you're able to find, your Llanowar Elves, or, acceleration, or your lands, or whatever you're looking for, smooths out those draws incredibly. This card has been wanted for quite a while.
There were several different mono green decks that have been wanting this card to be on the client, and it's so simple but so good for those decks. And if you look at actual paper Pioneer, this gets played in all the green devotion decks, and so. Yeah, definitely going to be played day 1 on the client when this launches.
Yeah.
It's the green ponder. It fixes your draws. It replaces itself most of the time. And oh, by the way, not that anyone else has ever played this deck, but there was a vintage deck that used this alongside Mishra's Workshop, because it says any type of mana. So you can play your planeswalkers with your workshop mana. But for the most part, this is green devotion. It was banned at one point for how much it enabled that deck, being able to dig up your Nykthoses and your green pips and all that kind of stuff. Excited to have this one. This one's like the poster child. There's like 3 or 4 cards of like, they didn't have to do 400 cards. They could have done like 4 cards, and this is one of the cards they needed to put on the client in order for Pioneer to be online.
Oh yeah, and there's more like this to come. Let me tell you. Ruben, what's number 7?
My number 7 is a love letter to a type of card and a mechanic that for my money, might be the best Magic design decision, Charbelcher decks notwithstanding, in the last long time. And that's modal double face cards, where one half is a land and one half is a spell. They just fix your draws. They make you feel like you're not getting screwed out of games. You play, one of them face up as a land, or you play face down as a land and face up as its spell. And they downshifted a couple of them, or maybe all of them. But one that they certainly downshifted that for me, in a 40 card format, is going to be very exciting is Silundi Vision. Silundi Vision is the blue one, for those of you playing along at home. 2 generic and a blue gets you an instant that says, look at the top 6 of your library, and you pick an instant or sorcery from among them, put it in your hand, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. Or you can play Silundi Isle, which they comes into play tapped blue land. I played so many of this card in Limited. 6 is a huge number in a 40 card format. And I'm excited to have multiples of these in all of my blue decks, basically. Just digging for my removal spells.
Bringing down the common is good. Now that's clean living right there. So yeah, this card is dope, and it's one of those cards that if you did draft 4 or 5 or whatever, like turn 1 tap land. That's
you just play them all, right?
I mean, did you count them as like half a land back in the day?
I counted. Yeah. Most of the time, I counted them as full lands.
Oh wow.
Because they were just tap lands. I mean, it depends on your speed of your deck. Mm-hmm. But if you're playing Terramorphic Expanse in your deck, that's what comes into play tap land. This is no different.
Right. I was thinking Zendikar Rising wasn't the fastest format, as I recall anyway. So
right.
Probably that too. Time. So yeah, but this is great. I'm glad it's down to common. All right, let's move on here to number 7 from Power Dragon. What you got?
We have what's ultimately going to probably be a sideboard card, but it's funny because it kind of goes against the Progenitor Mimic that I was just talking about, but Hushwing Gryff. 2 colorless and a white for a 2/1 Hippogriff, which creature type you don't get to see that often, with flash and flying, and creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Like, this is just one of those cards that's super nice to have for combo-y situations, for lots of just silly things that can happen. And you don't have a ton of good answers that turn this stuff off, so it's really nice to have this. And the fact that it has flash lets it just come in after your opponent's starting to set up their combo situation. You usually get to stop it for at least a turn, and then you can kind of see what happens from there. So, yeah, cool to see this one come around and give you a little bit of defense that you might need.
Man, we ain't seen this in a hot minute.
Yeah.
No, this was 10 years ago, looks like. And it's been a while. The 2/1 flash flyer for 3 mana Hate Bear or Hate Bird, as I've sometimes seen it referred to, originally began with Aven Mind Sensor, and now we have a Hushwing Gryff. There's a couple more that sort of fit into that category. I love this card. It's a counterspell. It attacks and blocks. Doesn't really block, but it attacks after you deal with their comes into play ability. Card's great.
Yeah, I think once you wrap your mind around the fact that like creatures entering don't cause abilities to trigger, that is a counterspell. Like one of the reasons creatures are as good as they are is they have those into the battlefield abilities, and this just says no, not just on the one that's on the stack, which if it were, we'd probably still be talking about this, but no, all of them until they kill this thing, and it has evasion, so we can just get in there in the meantime. So yeah, card is dope. Don't underestimate this thing. All right, let's move on here to number 6. Oh my goodness, number 6. Yet another card that I have built so many decks. I'm telling you, I just run smack into the wall, like, Wile E. Coyote style when it comes to building decks from Pioneer. And I'll go right smack into the card I don't have. And so many times, it has been Chained to the Rocks. Yep. Chained to the Rocks is so good. It is so unique in what it does. There's nothing that works or does the way this does. And the fact that it enchants a mountain, oh my God. Chained to the Rocks is a awesome reprint. It is coming back in as a rare as it was originally in Theros. It's 1 white mana for a rare enchantment aura. You enchant a mountain you control, and that doesn't say basic. And when Chain of the Rocks enters, you exile target creature an opponent controls until Chain of the Rocks leaves the battlefield. So the magic of it just being 1 mana, which is, of course, the most important thing, and the fact that your dual lands can use this just fine, including your tri-lands, like, oh man, Chain of the Rocks, just get in my decks right now. I'm so excited.
Yeah, the card's just good. I mean, for 1 mana, like, you can't really beat that. I mean, the closest thing we have is the standard one right now costs 2 ossification, right? Like, that's the next best thing. But for 1 mana, that's just hard to beat, man. Like, that's just simple removal. And oftentimes, if you do put it on a basic mountain, like, they're almost never going to get rid of it.
Yeah. This was my number 8.
Nice.
Not only is this a very good card, it does get new art by Domenico Cava, who has, not a ludicrously long resume, but there's a bunch of cards that this artist has done, and good to see them featured on a card that, as far as I'm aware, does have a decent amount of play. I've played it across 3 or 4 different decks in my time, including just straight up burn decks in Modern and Pioneer, to be able to put on my Sacred Foundries, just in case my opponent is running something that has Pro Red or Indestructible or something that's super annoying like that. And for the low cost of 1 mana, you get to trigger all of your enchantment triggers. You get to, it's a 1 mana removal spell that doesn't give them any life or any basic land like Source of Plowshares or Path to Exile. If you can play it, it's the best for what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, like, Swords of Plowshares is kind of, it's just your gold standard, right? It's like, it deals with anything. It's like, yeah, well, so does this. If they don't spend time to remove this enchantment, which they usually don't, this just gets rid of the worst thing they got. Just go on. 1 mana. Oh my God. I've wanted it for years. Ruben, what's number 6?
My number 6 is another downshift from rare in its original printing. It did have a brief stop at uncommon in Ultimate Masters, finally down to common here, which I was, again, shocked by. Like, you look at certain cards and you go, that's the wrong color rarity symbol. And that was my reaction when I saw Hero of Iroas. Hero of Iroas was a rare in Born of the Gods, and I was happy to pick it. I guess there were slim pickings in Born of the Gods, but you get it. Then it was an uncommon in Ultimate Masters, and now finally down to a common 2 mana 2/2 human soldier that says aura spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast, and it has the heroic ability, which says whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of Iroas, you put a +1/+1 counter on him. That's a handsome gent, and it's a good ability.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cards that, when we talk about pieces that fill in for other decks, this is just like some of those ones that just like, all right, I want to play these auras, but I just need 1 better creature that can survive some things. Like, this might be that piece, and it's also cool that it's a card that slowly got its stair step down to a lower rarity, right? Like, it didn't just like, oh, it's here, now it's a common. It's like, well, we'll try it here. It was all right. Now let's see what happens at common. It's probably fine, right? But yeah, this is a cool card. I think this is going to help a couple of different decks.
Born of the Gods, not the greatest Magic the Gathering set ever created, and I'm totally fine when you see a card start to sort of do that, downshift, and you're like, well, it was kind of okay to start with. Like, the auras costing less, I think, was like its big draw, right? At the time, auras hadn't been really, giving that kind of discount or whatever, and so that was a big thing. Now it's like, who cares? It's just like a 2/2 that has an upside.
And I don't know that there's a world where this sees constructed play, but there is a SRAM auras deck. And so, maybe there's a world where this sneaks into the
I've seen some Light Pause
game.
stuff popping up, and like this fits perfectly in that. So
Great.
Yeah, there's some options.
Absolutely. Now in common. Power Dragon, what's number 6?
My number 6 is higher on somebody else's list. And it doesn't surprise me once we talk about the card.
Okay, fair enough. That's pretty rare. Let's move here to my number 5, which is my last higher. But it's okay because it rules. Ruben, what's number 5?
My number 5 fits both of my qualifications. I wanted a downshift, specifically to common, and I wanted new art. And the fact that it hasn't ever been reprinted in paper but past its initial printing back in 2018 during Guilds of Ravnica is helpful. This was a card that I was super happy to pick very early in Limited. The fact that it is a common only more so now. The fact that we have gates in this format is kind of strange, but I'll take it. They're common mana fixing abilities. And another common mana fixing ability that you might be interested in for your green decks is District Guide. District Guide is 2 generic and a green for a 2/2 elf scout. And when District Guide enters, you can search your library for a basic land or gate card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. It has beautiful new art from Julia Metzger. District Guide, I'm super happy to blink. I'm super happy to get 1 activation and then throw it under the tires of a chump block. It's the glue that holds everything together in a lot of my decks.
I'm gonna miss the old art because it kind of was doing the Batman thing, like up on the building with the cape flowing. But
Sure.
the new art is pretty sweet. But yeah, this card's cool. I think if you are trying to do gates, this is definitely another option. Help speed the number of gates up. Obviously, get you at least somewhat of a body for 3 mana that you can block and buy some time. Because that's really what that deck's all about, right? It's buy time, get your gates, try to win, and this actually fits that. So not upset to see this one.
Yeah, this is one of the cards that I would say you should never ever cut below 1. Like if you get 2 or 3, I can understand not playing 2 or 3. You should at least play 1. This on curve is wonderful. It just feels good. It plays well. It's great. You play 2 of them, I would not hate or be like, what are you doing? I think it's okay. The card is very, very good and just brings that consistency that you really want from your limited decks. And I love that it's no longer uncommon. So now you don't have to pick it so highly because we did at the time because the card's dope. Card's sweet. Power Dragon, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is interesting because this is a card that has seen a ton of reprints, but not really in anything recent that was playable. I mean, it's been in some commander decks, and it still stayed at $2+ value, which is crazy. And it makes me mad that it's going to be in Pioneer because it's going to make the stupid Cat Oven decks better. But Zulaport Cutthroat. This card's just dumb good. It's colorless and a black for a 1/1 human rogue ally. Whenever a Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. This thing's just gonna be a menace for so many reasons in so many decks. Like any of the aristocrat type decks, like I said, the Cat Oven decks love this thing. This is just a simple but good card, and it's not even just a Pioneer level card. It's just a staple card across Magic since the day it was printed. The fact that it has I don't know, 15 printings or something, some giant number, and it's still $2 or $3 says so much about this card. It is so dumb. But yeah, expect to see this thing to annoy you on Arena very, very soon.
Yeah, this is where I have my Chain to the Rocks ready to go.
Yep.
To get rid of garbage like this. This is the type of card. First of all, I kind of thought it was already on Arena, but it's not.
Right.
Because
it's been reprinted in a bunch of commander sets and remastered sets, but somehow had avoided being reprinted on or re-uploaded to Arena up until this point. Yeah.
Oh, and I was wrong. It's just 12 versions.
Oh, only.
Just 12 printings.
I also appreciate beyond a Secret Lair version, Jason Rainville killed it so hard. They're like, no, man, that's just Zula Cutthroat. Zulaport Cutthroat.
That's the guy.
That's the dude. You got him. You fixed it. So that was great. Card is dope. Let's move on here to number 4. Oh, my darling. Have I just pined to see this card in Arena? I have, again, this might be the number 1 card beyond, at least from what we have left right here, of the number of decks where I've built them. And I've been like, wait, I need 4 of what? And this card is not on the, oh my God. And I've said it before, but my God, I'm so excited. We have Reckless Bushwhacker on the client. Oh my God.
Oh, I forgot that wasn't on Arena.
Nothing does what this stupid card does. It's so unique. It's a red and 2 generic mana. Show up an Oath of the Gatewatch, for God's sake.
Yep.
It is an uncommon 2/1 Goblin Warrior ally. It has Surge of a red and a generic mana, which means you can cast a spell for its surge cost if you or a teammate has cast another spell this turn. It has haste. When it enters, if its surge cost was paid, other creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. all of your other creatures. So this is a giant combo piece for some combo decks in that regard. It's just a great aggro card when you play a Monastery Swift Spirit and pay 2 mana for this, and in you get like it's just so many upsides to this creature, and so many different ways that you can play it and decks that it goes into because it has that flexibility. I cannot wait. And it's just an uncommon. They could have upshifted it and I wouldn't have cared, not even a bit. Like, whatever, dude, just take those wild cards, give me my Bushwhacker, because this card needs to be on Arena.
Yeah, this is one like I said to you, said something like, oh yeah, I guess that really wasn't on Arena already. But yeah, cool card. I think it fits a lot of different aggro decks, mono red, Boros, a couple different builds. Even goblins really can get away with playing this. So this is actually a cool addition to have. It's going to help creature decks a lot.
Yeah, really popular in the 8 whack deck. Alongside Goblin Bushwhacker. I've played this alongside many in Empty the Warrens, and I'm excited to see it on Arena.
Right. It's weird that it fits in those kind of crazy different shells, but that's what I think is so cool about it, and that's why I've wanted it for so long. Very excited. Ruben, what's number 4?
From aggressive to the most expensive card of all time, and mana-wise, not money-wise. But sometimes this deck would just kill you on turn 3, depending on where and when we're playing. But I'm choosing Enter the Infinite specifically because it has this beautiful new art from Lindsay Look. Enter the Infinite is 8 generic blue, 12 total mana to Enter the Infinite. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, then put a card from your hand on top of your library. You have no maximum hand size until your next turn. This is a combo-enabling card alongside Omniscience, which recently got a Foundations reprint. I don't think we have the full Enter the Infinite combo online in Pioneer, ? But, you put something expensive on top of your deck and release the ants. Is the spell from Morningtide that we are trying to kill people with in Legacy. I'm sure there's something to kill your opponent when you draw all of the cards in your deck except for one.
This is the type of card that when I was questioning when Foundations came out, like, okay, do we really need Omniscience? And it's like, okay, well, now I see. We're setting up for some things and building to where you can have all these classic decks available. And I'm all right with that. Like, yeah. It's cool. It makes sense. Yeah. So this is like one more piece toward making that happen, I think.
There's just there's a point in all mana costs of Magic cards where at some point of the mana cost, it literally doesn't matter what the card's going to do. It's going to do something absolutely ridiculous, the most insane thing you can think of. Draw your whole deck and put one back. 12 mana, whatever, man. Might as well be 200 mana, because this is not a card that does anything fair. This isn't a fair Magic card. You don't play this on turn whatever so you can get all your deck in your hand. That don't make any sense. You play it because you're doing a thing to perform a such and such to make a so-and-so happen. And that's great. We need this type of card.
Oh, yeah. There's cost after a point. You're not even paying the cost ever, right? You're finding some other way to get the card cast.
Exactly. Yeah. At that point, might as well have an infinite symbol for mana, because who cares, right? But yeah, I love that these types of cards exist because they're just the type of cards you can freak people out with. You know what I mean? There's the 2/2s for 2 mana and whatever, they're attacking, they're blocking. You go, okay, so read this, and they're like, what? I love that. I think that's great. All right, Power Dragon. What's number 4?
My number 4 is a card. I will admit that back in the day when it was played, I didn't really enjoy it that much. But now, because we have so many fun and interesting ways to get cards in the graveyard, I might be into it. But Jace, Vryn's Prodigy.
Oh, yeah.
Colorless and a blue for an 0/2 human wizard that lets you loot, so you get to draw and discard. And then, if there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard, you flip it. And it becomes Jace Telepath Unbound. With 5 loyalty, you +1 up to 1 target creature gets -2 until end of turn. You -3. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If it would be put into the graveyard, it's exiled. And then -9, you get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, target opponent puts the top 5 cards of their library into his or her graveyard. So much going on with this damn card, and it got a lot of action previously when it was available to be played. I expect there's going to be a fair amount of play on this card, and we have a lot of new and interesting cards that fill the graveyard since this came out in Magic Origins. We have a lot of stuff that surveils, look at the top X, put some number in the graveyard into your hand. You have the new Kiora that lets you draw and discard. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that you could do with this that didn't exist before. So it'd be interesting to see what people do with this.
I mean, at very least, we have Arclight Phoenix.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I love a Merfolk looter, and Jace Vryn's Prodigy is the greatest Merfolk looter in the history of all time. We have Consider in this set. We have Tome Scour upshifted, not downshifted to uncommon, thank goodness. So we won't have decks of 85 Tome Scours, but there's lots of ways to trigger Jace early and often.
Yeah, I love the story around this card because to me it's really special when you have these moments of something shows up and no one respects it. And there's only really a few times when that like really happens. Some cards are better than expected or whatever, but no, like you only get a few Tarmogoyfs in your life. You only get a Jace Vryn's Prodigy once when LSV says, hey, this is the best card in the set, and no one had said that, and no one even alluded to that, and everyone was like, what? And it went up to like $30 overnight. Like it was crazy because it was like, wait a minute, no, this is the greatest Merfolk looter of all time. This was my number 8. This is a card that I see not always as a 4 of, sometimes there's a 1 or 2 of, depending on what the deck is doing, or it's in the sideboard or whatever, because if you're fighting against a control deck, you just get to burn through stuff, and once you flip him over, good luck stopping him, and that stupid -5 or -9 mill 5 cards,
Yep.
that matters all of a sudden, like that really matters, which is crazy. So I love that. I love this card. Very excited to see this on Arena. All right, let's move on, y'all, to number 3. My number 3 is a silly Billy. This card is weird. This card is strange. This is the weirdest little card. It's my number 3 because it's like when we're at this level, it either is very ubiquitous for me, or it will define an archetype. An archetype cannot exist with this card not on the client. So when Hidden Strings finally makes its way onto the clients, you can do really stupid stuff because it's Hidden Strings and Lotus Veil or whatever. Hidden Strings is great. It came out from Dragon's Maze. Dragon's Maze wasn't a very good set, and they upshifted to uncommon, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's kind of needed because it's just really dumb and annoying at times. It's a blue and a white generic, or a blue and a generic mana for a common sorcery, now uncommon. It just says you may tap or untap target permanent. Then you may tap or untap another target permanent. Well, then it has Cipher. Oh, the ciphering. Cipher says, then you may exile this spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. And so you do all sorts of weird, silly things with Hidden Strings and friends, and like Vizier, right, from Amonkhet or whatever. And just
Vizier of Tumbling Sands.
Yeah, so between those two things, you just go nuts on the mana and do dumb stuff. High five.
Yeah, this is a card that enables just trickery anyway that your opponent's not expecting. It can be mid combo stuff, right? That you're playing it out of the graveyard multiple times. Like there's all kinds of things you could do with this card. Like,
yeah,
it's one of those ones I think we forget about until you see somebody in the middle of using it. And you're like, oh yeah, well, that's why that card exists. Right? It's one of those. So I expect we'll see some. I don't think this will be like a highly played card, but I think where it's wanted, it's going to be highly needed.
Yes. And that's the point, is you need this for Twiddlestorm or for the Lotus Veil combo. We are not using the Cipher very much in our deck, but we are pretty much untapping our land that taps for 3, and we're untapping our creature that untaps our land that taps for 3. And that is what we are doing with Hidden Strings, but there's nothing else like it on the client until now. This is one of the 5 cards that they could have printed in just secret lair cards we need to put on Arena to make Pioneer a thing, but they finally put it there. I'm also glad this one was upshifted to uncommon, so we aren't seeing everyone try to make Cipher work. I think that would have made a miserable limited environment if everything had pseudo vigilance. But yeah, it's a great card for what it does.
Like Cipher, I think as a mechanic kind of failed pretty hard, but this is like super Twiddle. This is Twiddle plus plus.
Yeah.
And sometimes Twiddle plus plus is what you need to do stupid stuff.
Yep.
And you can't. So that's great. All right, let's move on here to number 3 from Ruben. What you got?
Speaking of decks that are now online that you couldn't play online, we've got the namesake of a deck that is kind of a meme, but hey man, sometimes you want to live the dream, the meme dream, and that's what you get with Soulflare. Soulflare is now online, everybody. Originally printed in Fate Reforged, now printed with gorgeous new art from Xavier Ribeiro. Soulflare is a 6-mana 4/4 demon, but we ain't paying all that. It has Delve, and if a creature with flying was exiled with Soulflare's Delve ability, Soulflare has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. Basically everything except for Ward is copied there, and you can do this with Atraxa. Can I interest you in copying all of those abilities? How about either of the Akromas? There's plenty of creatures out there that are like Flying, First Strike, Vigilance that we can probably copy up. Maybe an Adult Gold Dragon. There's a lot
what
of
we got
ways to
from
get value.
Foundations that works really well?
What was that?
Zatalpa,
Yep, Zatalpa,
the big white dragon.
Oh, yes. That's
We also have Chromanticore. Not on my top 10 list, but I thought I would mention it as another card that would add a whole mess of keywords into your Soulflare.
Yeah, this is a fun one, man. This is a type of card that's powerful but fun, and you don't mind it being on the other side of the battlefield. Like if something crazy is going to happen, let's see it just go off, and you get this big monster with like 6 abilities on it, right? Like so, yeah, this is a fun one to see get the reprint.
I'm curious if they're ever actually going to put Ward as a copyable ability on creatures like this, because it's kind of pretty annoying.
Yeah.
And like if you have multiple creatures with Ward, what happens? Does it add up? Does each one trigger separately or something? Right.
It is a little interesting because they do have some that'll just copy Hexproof as well. So it's like if you're willing to copy Hexproof, why not Ward?
Well, because Hexproof doesn't have a separate cost, right? Hexproof is just Hexproof.
Sure.
Whereas Ward changes, the numbers changes. Sometimes you discard a card. Sometimes you got to discard 3 non-land permanents for what's his nuts from Dustborn.
Right.
Yeah. So card is I get why they don't have it, but I kind of wish they would, just try.
Yeah. None of the abilities that Soulflare specifically gains like double up in usability.
Right.
When you stack them together, like you can't have double lifelink or
that's
double
a good
trample.
point.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of the later ones like Urborg Scavengers, I think that you can do stuff like that. Certainly the Mimeoplasm lets you do things like that, but for this, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with us just getting the OG online.
There you go. Power Dragon, what's number 3?
I just realized this is the second of 3 gods that made my list, which is kind of weird. Didn't realize that till just now. But Purphoros, God of the Forge. 3 colorless and a red for a 6/5, but it's a god, so it's not a creature until you have 5 for your devotion. But whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Purphoros deals 2 damage to each opponent. And you can pay a colorless and a red. Creatures you control get +1/+0 to end of turn. Now, generally, this ability itself doesn't really excite me all that much, though Purphoros does tend to turn into a creature quite a bit, which is nice. But recently, I've been goofing around with other decks because of some stuff that got reprinted in Foundations with Impact Trimmers and War Leader's Call. So then I start getting excited about every creature that enters the battlefield coming in, dealing 3 or 4 damage. Instantly starts to get kind of exciting. So I'm like, I don't know if that's a thing, but it's something I'm going to be keeping an eye out for.
Like Raise the Alarm, deal 6 or 8. Like,
yeah,
I'll take it.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
awesome.
It sounds silly, but what is it? The white one, the reinforcements that makes the creature and a soldier token.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of little things that could work out to be pretty annoying with this thing being available.
For sure. I mean, those of you who play Commander and have ever played against a Purphoros know that those games don't last long.
Yeah.
This has been nipping at the heels of constructed formats for a long time. I don't know where it currently sits. I know that it's very popular in Commander. But now that it's online, at least in Brawl, it's certainly going to see play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if nothing else, the whole God cycle was reprinted, so you can have some really cool, timeless brawl or whatever. What do they call it?
Yeah,
historic brawl. So you can have some really fun decks in those formats, even if it doesn't reach the upper echelons of constructed so and so. All right, so let's move on here to number 2. Now, my number 2 card I have bemoaned for years, for so many years. I have consistently looked at a deck list and I'm like, oh my god, that looks so cool. And nope, it's not on Arena. And they'll just do something else that's really, really kind of neat, but it's just always so rad. They can just search up whatever. Nope, it's not an arena. Finally, Bring to Light is my number 2. It's finally on Arena. This card is awesome. It is its own archetype. You can't build the Bring to Light deck without Bring to Light. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why it's here for my number 2. Bring to Light is a blue, a green, and 3 generic mana. So it's 5 mana for a rare sorcery that has Converge. Search your library for a creature, instant, or sorcery card with mana value less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. Exile that card, then shuffle. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So between creatures, instants, and sorceries, and plenty of 5-color mana bases out there, this card gets pretty much whatever you want, up to 5 mana, of those card types. And damn, it's so good, but damn, it don't exist unless this is on the client. You can't replace it with anything.
Yeah, this is obviously, I mean, the deck's even named after it. Like, it's the card. You got to have it. But honestly, just having this level of tutor action is very good, right? Even if you're not playing in the definitive Bring to Light deck, sometimes even just going, you know what, if I play this and I spend 3 on it or 4 colors on it because I can just make a 4th color, like, that still gets you almost anything you want in your deck. I mean, it's still not bad to have. Like, this is a really good card.
Yeah, even if you fire it off for like 2 or 3 mana, even in like limited, and you go and fight a removal spell, right? Like, or whatever, like, or just a little dorky 3-drop, right? Like, it still found you your best 3-drop, right? Or whatever. Like, there's reasons why this card is like not always insane, but in constructed formats, you can really just get the most out of it.
Yeah. Right now, it's most popular in a 5-color sort of like ley line of the Guild Pact up the beanstalk thing. That you know what that deck looks like. You haven't even seen a list, and you know what I'm talking about. And that's exciting to have that available online, like a 5-color domain mix-up kind of thing. It's exciting.
Very, very nice. Very nice. All right, Ruben, what's number 2?
My number 2 is a card that is a style of card I have played for a very long time in all manner of decks, because when I play a creature, I don't want it to die. And the easiest way for my creature to die is for you to target it. And if you can't target my creatures, but I can, that means I get a whole build of strategy around it. And back in the day, that would have been Bogles. But Slippery Bogle, not in Pioneer, not on Arena. We have to shift, we have to adapt, we have to overcome. Now we play a green-white SRAM deck, where you use SRAM and you use some other cool enablers like Light Paws to try to get stuff onto. Now we get Gladecover Scout. Gladecover Scout is a common in Pioneer Masters. It is a 1 green mana, 1/1 Elf Scout common with Hexproof.
Yes.
That is what the card does, and that is all it needs to do. Originally printed in Magic 2012. Brand new art here from Brian Valeza, and excited to have it online.
Yeah, I think this is good timing too, because it recently got, I think it's the something Toadstool that has Ward 2 for 1, and it's a 1/1. So now you can play those alongside each other with all those other SRAM and Light Paws parts, and you're pretty close to having a Boggles deck. Like, real close, right? So we might have had the exact cards for every single piece, but man, you're right there after this gets released.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what was going on back in Magic 2012, 2014 or so. Wizards got this thing where they're just like, we need to make hexproof like awesome. And so they created a bunch of really awesome hexproof stuff. And you're like, damn, could we not just get run over by stuff we can't target? And voila, Ward was born.
Yeah.
But it remains arguably a pretty giant mistake. This is my number 5 because it very much enables the Bogles hexproof deck. Even if you only get one of them, you need one of them. You need one of those things that says you cannot touch this no matter what you do. You have to Pyroclasm, you have to Wrath it away, you got to do something that cannot touch it. And so you're just like putting on everything you can, and they've added lots of really cool enablers, and I'm very excited to play that deck.
Hell, I'd say even really good auras that have come out since that was last printed, honestly, that didn't exist.
Indeed. All right, Power Dragon, what's number 2?
My number 2, oddly a card that both helps combo and stops combo. But Silence. Just 1 white instant, your opponent can't cast spells this turn. Like, this card just good. It's just one of those another one that I literally just didn't realize wasn't available for older formats on Arena till I saw it and went, really? Like, yeah, all right, fine. But this is one of those sideboard cards, right? Like you're trying to make sure you could force through a spell you need, and your opponent's playing, Azorius Control or something, right? Like you in the middle of a combo, and you're like, okay, I got to make sure I can get my next spell off, or vice versa, right? They're setting up the combo, and you're like, during your upkeep, let's just stop your turn, and then I'll get another turn here. Like super annoying. Even worse when they can replay it out of the graveyard or whatever. Like this card's tough, but really, really cool. I expect to see a lot of action on this card in sideboards.
Like Silence, Snapcaster Silence is
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's
very good when your opponent casts an ad nauseum. It's very good when you're about to cast an ad nauseum. It's very good when you're about to cast an Atali. It's very good just as your opponent casts an Atali.
Yeah.
There's lots of great things to love about Silence. This was my number 10. And the reason why I had it at my number 10 is it isn't a downshift. And it technically isn't a change in art, but it is if you look at the old versions, the dude's head points to the left. And for some reason, they mirror imaged Silence in this set.
I noticed that too, and I thought that was very weird.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why they decided to make this change, but here we are.
And it was weird because when I saw the new art, for some reason, my brain went, oh, this is new art. And then I went and looked up the old and went, no, it's the same art, just different direction.
Right. Strange. I appreciate this was Magic 2010's, one of the big spells in 2010 were like, hey, this is sort of classic Magic. We're trying to redefine exactly what Magic is, and to have a 1 white mana spell that says just stop. Could you just stop is nice and beautiful. And also, I mean, worth some good money right here. Other than the Princess Bride version or whatever, of course, being a bunch of money, still like $6 to $10 depending on what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And now the head goes different direction. It means to be quiet 2 different ways. Okay, moving on to number 1. Ruben, what's your number 1?
My number 1, now I am not the most up on the Pioneer metagame, but in my recollection, this was a very playable card. This is a card that I'm excited to have online for the first time. It's a card that I have cast a ton of, and I'm just a sucker for burn spells. So I wanted to make sure I had a burn spell somewhere on my list, and where better than right at the very top. I don't know if the Gruul aggro deck that I was in love with is still playable, or if now it's going to become more playable now that it's online, but in that deck, Wild Slash was absolutely a headliner, and I'm very excited to have Wild Slash back on the menu. 1 red mana instant common now, downshifted from uncommon, originally printed in Fate Reforged. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, damage can't be prevented this turn. That's its ferocious ability. And by the way, deal 2 damage to any target. So really excellent against fogs or prevention effects or whatever, what have you. This ability is an excellent end around against a lot of the stuff that sees play as hate cards in the format.
You know what's funny? I'm pretty sure I used this to win a top 8, win it in, and a top 4 match against like Turbo Fog decks, particularly because of this card. Like on a winning turn both times. Like this card, it's so simple. It's another one that you just forget about sometimes. And then when somebody casts it, you kind of just stop and stare at it for a second and go like, yeah, that's still a Magic card. Like, God damn it. like it's just one of those things, man. It's such a simple, clean design on a card for the decks that want it and need it.
Yeah, Wizards has to tiptoe. There's a very, very delicate balance. There's a giant difference between 3 damage and 2 damage. What they can do with a shock with upside versus like you can't make a lightning bolt, but you can make 3 damage for 1 red hit a creature or planeswalker, but you can't really do it to any target. But if you can do it to any target and not prevent the damage, well, suddenly that makes some sense and has sideboard, things that are important about it. And this is where I was asking for like, what was it, core? Not Artificer.
Firewalker.
Firewalker, thank you. Core Firewalker could show up in the format. Well, bingo bango.
And this thing or a Skullcrack is going to be able to mitigate that damage for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Actually, because that's pro-red to move a target. But that's not the point. Point is...
Well, I can, if you block...
You can target
my red creature...
damage can't
and then I target you with Wild Slash. That still kills you back.
That's what I'm talking about. There we go. In and outside the box. Power Dragon, I believe your number 1 is my number 9, and your number 6 is my number 1. So what is your number 1?
Oh, that's interesting. So my number 1 is the last of the 3 gods that I was talking about previously, but the one I realized I played the most and that's Xenagos, God of Revels.
Yeah.
3 colorless, red green for a 6/5 god. It needs 7 devotion, green and red. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. This has been the haste on this cannot be overstated. I mean, being able, like, the board gets swept, your opponent's picking off your stuff. And if you're already playing quality creatures in this format that already have some amount of trample or some other ability, like, you're basically playing things that are getting +3/+3 or +4/+4 in haste every time. Like, you're hitting with 6 and 8 power creatures every single turn after this is out. If this never becomes a creature, you don't even mind. Like, this has been so good for me on so many turns. I'm so glad to see this reprinted. And I'm probably going to be playing with it.
Yeah, this is a card that is in my list in my number 9 because, it's there for like the World Spine Worm combo or whatever that you can do with it. I think it's also super cool as a casual card, which is fun. And again, one of those cards, it's like for the World Spine Worm or whatever, those type of combo decks, you got to have this card. What this card does and how it does it and how it crushes your opponent and ends the game. Nobody does it but Xenagos. So you need Xenagos, and I'm so happy it's in the set.
Yeah, this is a very popular card in the Indomitable Creativity deck in Pioneer. There is also a Allosaurus Rider combo. I don't know if that's available online right now.
I don't know.
We'll have to add Allosaurus Rider to a future Pioneer Masters release. But at least the Indomitable Creativity fans will have something to turn their food tokens and their dwarf tokens into.
Yeah. So my number 1, which again I think by process of elimination is Power Dragons number 6. This is the number 1. Now again, I've talked about, I've ran into like, with Reckless Bushwhacker and Bring to Light can't happen without Bring to Light or whatever. But there is just no card that is thrown in as a one of into every random deck. I don't care what's happening. You need this because it matters when you're trying to play a bunch of creature lands or whatever, and it turns them into actual mana producing card lands or whatever. It's always there. From the very beginning, I'm like, why is Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth not on this freaking client? And then I was most surprised, and hell, if anything, appreciative, that they did not make it mythic. They totally could have made this mythic, and I would have totally understood and said, you know what, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth is a mythic land. That card is dope. It's going to see infinite play. I'm only going to need really to craft one. You don't even really play more than one. You don't need to. It's just the beautiful, wonderful design. It enables so many little things. It's hard to describe the little nooks and crannies of everywhere why this card is played as much as it is, but my God, it's in a million lists, and I could never use it. This is the number 1 card that I would see when I would download a deck list and try to import an arena, and like, oh, you don't have Urborg. And I'm like, oh, of course not, because everything runs 1 Urborg, and that's where we were.
Yeah, I've caught myself playing Urborg, and even in some cases, the green one, the Yavimaya, in a lot of different lists. Like, it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, it just makes your mana easier. It enables some other cards that care about you having swamps, or in Yavimaya case, forests, right? Yeah. Like, there's just a lot that these cards enable by not even being any extra problem to put into your deck, right? Like, the value proposition is really high, and there's no real issues just having an extra swamp in your deck. It's like, no surprise that this was going to be one of those cards people were waiting on.
Yep. This was, I was never worried. I never had a doubt that this was going to be somebody's number 1 or on somebody's list. But as we were getting towards the end, I was like, man, if we don't have Urborg, we're going to get lambasted in the comments section.
Yep.
Thank you for saving us. But it's one I purposefully left off on my list because I was like, someone's going to have it. And of course, both of you do. Of course, it deserves to be on this list. It is, I have to imagine this is the most played card in Pioneer that wasn't on Arena already. I have to imagine.
I mean, it's in Soul Cauldron, Rakdos mid-range, Mono Black Control. Like, it's just in just a ton of stuff.
And I've been playing it as a 1 of all the way up to a 4 of since its original printing back in Planar Chaos.
There you go.
And I love it. And I'm so very, very happy that it is on the client. And ladies and gentlemen, that was our top 10 Pioneer Masters cards. Going to bring up that list from us now. Take a look at my list, Power Dragons list. Ruben's top 10, and we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about, and we'll select our favorite to highlight in our next top 10 video. But before we go, I want to thank my co-hosts. Thank you, Ruben.
Yeah, no problem. I'm cautiously optimistic about Pioneer Masters being an online-only set. You're going to have a relatively low ceiling, but I think that it's a well-designed set. I'm excited to look at the draft format and interested to see how they could translate all these cards over.
Absolutely. Thank you, Power Dragon.
You know, one of the things I will say about Pioneer Masters is I'm going to be interested to see what it does for the Pioneer format. Right now, you have more people able to play and iterate on stuff all the time, where a lot of people weren't necessarily playing a bunch of Pioneer. A bunch more people are about to, and I think this format's going to get shaken up pretty seriously.
And the limited format looks pretty rad. So
And we'll find out all about that constructed and limited format during the early access event.
That's right, early access this Thursday, 2 days from this recording, Thursday, December 5th. So show up, hang out. It should be a lot of fun. We'll move on here to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, ManaTraders.com, my co-host, Power Dragon, and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching and listening, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter or Blue Sky at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, or like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Or join us here next top 10, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.